And I remember when I was working with him, I thought, this is a job? Like you can be an executive coach? This is like, it's like when you grow up and see someone who's become like a professional ice cream taster. You're like, how is this a
Totally
thing?
agree. Hello, and welcome back to another amazing episode of What Worked. I'm Tyler Rochelle, and I'm joined today by the wonderful, the talented Mike Lemire. Now, I can't stop thinking about Mike told me how to pronounce his last name, Lemire as in come here. So I want to say, Mike Lemire, come on in here. Welcome to What Worked. Thrilled to have you. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. A pleasure to be here. And you nailed the name. You nailed the pronunciation, Tyler. It was great.
I better, because you've got some French in you, and I do too. We were just talking about our French lineage that is scattered at best, so we share that in common.
I didn't want to say the way people usually mispronounce it, which is Lemire. I wanted to get you through it. So it's Lemire is the alternative. And there were guys who I worked with at Yahoo many years ago who they said it wrong for so long. Some guys in the company thought my first name was Lee and my last name was Meyer.
That is hilarious. Okay, so we're truly kindled spirits here, or kindred spirits rather, because I have the same thing. Everybody in my life calls me Tyler Rachel. And that is to a point where I usually don't correct. I only correct people very limitedly. If they in a very limited capacity, if they say it and they ask me, did I say it correctly? I'll correct them. But I just say, you're good enough. But I get Rachel, recall, Rachel. It's all the above. So Tyler Rochelle, for anybody out there listening. And I tell people, I'm like, surely you will not find other Rochelles unless you go to Louisiana. That's where we're keeping all of them. I somehow escaped. Everybody else is there. So Lemire. So I'm joined here by Lemire.
Hey,
very
good to
talented. See you. Exactly. Your former Yahoo execs are like, Lee, how's he doing? Cool. So let's jump right into it. Mike is the founder of Harmonic Leadership, and he's a really talented, super experienced executive in customer experience, customer success. So we'll go more into Mike's full background here in a second. But Mike, would you mind, in your own words, telling us, what you do at Harmonic Leadership, who you do it for, and why?
What I do is I help leaders get to the next level by giving them an environment to honestly share their concerns and challenges, and then providing them with frameworks and thought partnership from someone who's been in their shoes. Like I know what it is to be an operator and be challenged by, reporting up to a CEO or working with a founder who doesn't know your discipline and can't really be helpful any longer to pull you through. So that's what I do. Who I work with are sort of anyone from managers all the way up to founders at tech companies. Most often, it's usually that director plus tier at larger companies where they're needing to convert from a fantastic tactician into a strategic leader, and making that jump without guidance can be really difficult. I do it because I was lucky enough to have investments made in me at companies like Yahoo and HubSpot and Toast, all the places where I'd been. People took the time to enroll me in leadership training, pair me with executive coaches. And when I saw the impact that had on me, I got addicted to it. And I wanted to provide that impact back to the rest of the industry.
That's incredible. And so I want to jump right into that piece. You were lucky enough to have people that took an interest in you and helped you develop in those moments when you were kind of making that leap. So let's jump into your career. You were at Toast, which everybody I think would call one of the elusive, unicorn, rocket ship, insert awesome, sort of adjective, right? Fast growing, crazy company. But you were inside the four walls. So you're like, I probably knew it as an insane asylum, right? Where everybody was, fastly moving and things were breaking probably all the time. But yeah, take me back to whenever it is that you did make that leap. Who were some of those people? Actually, one thing I love to do on What Worked is call them out by name, because we can tag them on a LinkedIn post and, kind of give them a shout out. Who kind of helped you develop and make this leap and into what you're going to be talking about today, which is situational leadership?
Well, I think it actually starts when I was at HubSpot. And so I had a manager there named Rebecca Guttner. Fast forward to today, she is someone who I partner with as she's moved into executive coaching as well. And we sort of run our practices alongside each other and support each other as we build.
Amazing.
She took the time to really work through what it is to be a great people leader when I first took that jump from being an individual contributor into a manager and having direct reports for the first time. What's interesting is that her husband is now the chief people officer at Toast, and was formerly the VP of customer success. So he was the person who brought me over.
Wild.
Yeah, he's got a really incredible skill set as an operator and a people leader. So he made continued investments in me. So the Guttner family has been so important at so many stages of my career.
Shout out the Guttner family. Sound like wonderful people.
They are wonderful people. Also, there's a woman at Toast who I was fortunate enough to work with, Emmanuel Scala, who came up the ranks.
Yes.
I don't know if you had a chance to meet Emmanuel.
We got connected way back in the day. Funny enough, I don't think we ever actually hopped on a call, but someone introduced us because I think it was when I was at TaskUs, or I was in some way still involved in BPO. And I think Toast was just thinking about maybe doing like an RFP for a BPO vendor, that sort of thing. So I got connected with her.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And what I was able to learn from her, she was a really strong people leader, a really strong executor, but she had wonderful operating models for her team. She created space for strategic thinking. She created space for experiments. And to be able to see that operating model, which is so important when you're going through scaling really quickly, the people who I think fail at that scaling point are people who are just constantly running through walls and putting out fires. You need the space to be able to think long-term and think strategically and to build planning and experiments into your operating model. She did that better than any leader I'd worked with. She also helped, we went through, like I think a lot of companies did during COVID, layoffs because, we weren't sure what the future of the restaurant industry was going to be, even if it would be around any longer. She was an incredibly supportive leader for me as we went through the reduction in force that we had to go through. And then she advocated to pair me with an executive coach as well, which gave me further investment. So I can't say enough about my friend Emmanuel.
That's so cool. So got the budget to pair you up with an executive coach. And who was that executive coach? I'm always curious, how did you find them? How did you make a choice in terms of who you were going to work with?
So it was interesting. I think the company actually paired us with an organization. And so we had a few different choices of coach. And so we were able to interview them. And when I was working with my coach, one of the things that struck me about him was that he understood the specific challenges that I was facing at that time. And he had gone through some of them himself. And I remember when I was working with him, I thought, this is a job. Like, you can be an executive coach. This is like, it's like when you grow up and see someone who's become like a professional ice cream taster. You're like, how is this a thing?
Totally agree.
So I got the bug then. And then I started sort of investigating what it is to be a coach, what the requirements are, how to actually become excellent at this line of work. Because it's not like, going to medical school or something like that. Anyone can sort of put on a coaching hat, but what separates an entry-level coach from an excellent coach? So that sort of put me on my path.
That's so cool. And I love that analogy of a professional ice cream taster. When I was at TaskUs, at some point, I was working directly underneath one of the co-founders, Jasper, and he had an executive coach through, I think it was Vistage at the time, I want to say is what he was using. And he just had these basically like extra hours that he wasn't using. And he's like, do you want to talk to this guy? And I feel terrible because I'd love to shout out his name, but I don't recall it. Yeah, the same thing. He was this older gentleman and he was so experienced. He had had some successful business in now like probably like a very different industry, like an industry that probably wouldn't exist very much. It was like a paper company, like Dunder Mifflin or something like that. Yeah. But I will say this is that the guy was so cool. It was like part therapist because I would tell him, here's what I'm working on. Usually it was like a deal I was stressing about or some sort of dynamic within the organization that I was struggling to figure out or fit in or whatever. And it was like he was part therapist. He would listen to me. But then also there's this added thing of, like you said, he had been in my shoes before. And he was able to kind of pull from this like encyclopedia of stories that he had where he'd be like, you know what? I was in a tense negotiation one time too. And here's what happened. And it reminded me of what you're talking about. And here's what I learned. And I was like, this is a job. That's what I thought. So that's so really cool.
The comparison to therapies made a lot too. And, part of it is, what separates a coach from a consultant is, a consultant's going to come in and say like, here's what you should do, Tyler. But a therapist, if you go to a therapist and they say, you're having problems with your marriage, good therapist would ever say, I think it's time to go get a divorce, right? They might ask you, when's the last time you were happy in your marriage? And sort of
Yep.
let you uncover it. So part of the coaching job is sort of not getting in the way, not putting your thumb on the scale, because you know your business better than I do. But having been in their shoes before, it's really knowing the questions to ask. So it might be, great, that's a great plan. How has finance responded to your plan right now? Right? Like make sure that there's maybe some perspective on that.
Without a doubt. And that's so funny. For anyone who's listening, some context that you won't hear from this episode, because we were talking about before, we were sort of yucking it up about our dads and how our dads, maybe, they give good advice, but it might not be the best advice always. And it's funny, you made me chuckle when you were talking about that, because I immediately thought of when you mentioned you should go get a divorce. My dad is so kind of scientific and mathematic in the way that he thinks about everything. He's very tactical. So anytime in my life I've come to him with these great life quandaries, I think I love this girl, Dad, and whatever it is, he's just so, very like by the numbers that it's like, not a good fit. So yeah, I don't think my dad would make a very good business coach. I think he kind of go right into like, you should get a divorce or you should quit your job. Go find something else. So you had this great experience. You had some awesome people that sort of went to bat for you and got you these types of resources. And ultimately you have started Harmonic Leadership. And we've talked previously, because we know each other now for a little bit. We've talked about this concept, this framework that you teach to the clients that you have called situational leadership, which I would love to hear just in your own words. What exactly is situational leadership and where do you apply it?
Yeah. It's essentially a framework to make sure that you're shifting your approach to your direct reports to make sure they're able to grow and achieve the skill set to get stronger in the skills that they need to grow in. So it's a method of management, essentially. It's interesting. So when I was hiring directors or managers, anyone who's going to have people report responsibilities under me in the interview process, I would say, tell me about your management philosophy. And if they didn't have them, I would be disappointed. What I would get a lot of the time is, I don't like to micromanage. Okay. And what I think situational leadership helps with is how and when to apply the right level of support to the right person based on what they're working on. What's been interesting for me is how much it applies both for a brand new person coming out of school as an individual contributor, all the way to a CEO working with a COO reporting up under them. And it can be applicable in any situation.
I could absolutely see that. And as you're saying this, I'm just immediately thinking, you've mentioned this phrase before, but you said basically it's like one size does not fit all for management. As you've kind of taught me about situational leadership, what's been really interesting is it's actually made me really think about myself too. Do you ever find that when you're working with your clients, you're helping them learn how to be better managers, but do they ever reflect on, themselves, kind of where they're at in terms of, there's these quadrants, which I want you to break down. Do they think about which quadrant maybe they line up in?
Not as much as I'd like them to, Tyler. Like that's very hip. That's very hip of you to have the self-awareness to sort of think about these frameworks and put them through yourself. Usually it's more the self-realization they have is, I was an amazing individual contributor. I've been an amazing leader. Like the way that I operate is how everyone else should operate, is sort of the MO that they have. And when they have a direct report who doesn't operate like them, it's how can I mold this person to be more like me, which tends to not work. What works better is, who is this person and what do they need right now so that I can support them in what makes them talented and what makes them special.
Without a doubt. And you tell me if this happens a lot, but as you say that, what I commonly think of is not only do they say, I really want people to be more like me, but also if they are managing, let's say, 10 direct reports, there's always going to be probably at least one who they consider to basically be mini them, junior them. And I think it's almost worse. It's a lot of times they find themselves, young managers, or young managers, not the right word. Let's just say like less experienced managers find themselves gravitating constantly towards those people that do remind them of themselves. And then worse, telling the rest of the team to be more like this person. It's kind of the idea that, you're missing out on some sort of wonderful development with the team, some wonderful opportunity by kind of pigeonholing everybody into the same bucket.
Absolutely. But even that star player that you talked about, you're doing a disservice to as well. So one of the key pieces of situational leadership is it isn't about the person, but it's about a specific skill set that person is trying to develop. So in a nutshell, what situational leadership is, it's a 4-box. And so you use the x-axis of the 4-box. It represents someone's competence. So do they have low competence in this skill set versus high competence? And then the y-axis represents their commitment or motivation. So do they have low commitment motivation or high motivation? So the example I like to give to articulate it is, as a VP of customer success, I had a lot of skill set in running a team, but at a startup, sometimes you have to wear many hats. So if my CEO were to come to me and say, hey, Mike, we need you on some of the real estate development. We need you to go find an office space for us in Boston. Cool. I've never had the opportunity to do that. So my commitment or motivation is high, excited to take on a new challenge. My competence in going and making a real estate deal on behalf of the company is incredibly low. So I would hope that my leader at that point, even though I was viewed as sort of an all-star player or rock star player, would be really directive with me. And this is the point where sort of I would need a degree of micromanagement. Here's what this looks like. Here's who the person who did this for us before worked with. Here are the contacts they had. Here's how long it usually takes. Why don't you go fill this out? Come back and check it with me, right? Whereas if the skill set we were trying to develop was running a team meeting, if my CEO were to be that prescriptive or directive with me on running a team meeting, I would be offended by that. So it's really separating the skill that you're trying to develop from the person.
That makes sense. So in that example you were mentioning, they're going to be very on the far left side on the x-axis, and then they're high up on the y-axis. And so that puts them into that bucket of directing versus coaching or supporting or delegating.
Right. And so the coaching is the next step. And so what comes with that is, let's say 3 months from now, I've made some traction with the initial deal, but I haven't pulled it across the finish line yet. At this point, my motivation and my excitement for this new task has probably come down quite a bit because the challenges become more realistic. My skill set, my ability to do this has come up a little bit, but not fully. So I don't need that, like, here's the template, go fill this out. But I do need a lot of like, hey, this is the thing you should do next. Maybe try this or that. Here's an example of what good looks like. But also a lot of encouragement. Mike, you did such a good job of that first call. I know it didn't work out, but like, here are some tweaks you make for the next one, sort of building up my confidence so that I'm able to overcome that enthusiasm gap. Getting into the next phase would then be supporting, right? So at this point, I've maybe closed my first deal. There's an ability to do the job, but I'm still not really confident in my abilities yet. So it's really building me up, showcasing my excellence, promoting me to the rest of the team. And eventually I get confident. I get good at what I do. That gets fully delegated over to me. And it's the leader's job to just shine the spotlight on me and continue to give me more at-bats and opportunities to grow more skills.
As I'm thinking about this, it's not just situational leadership. When you first told me this concept, I kind of thought more along the lines of thinking of the individual. But it can be situational leadership truly this is a moment, the situation, right? So it can be like, hey, this person generally, I'm going to have them, I'm going to be able to just have them in delegating. But it's delegating really for a specific set of tasks they're very proficient in. For other things, we might have to start off with S1, go to S2, et cetera, and move through the whole phase. Am I understanding that correctly, or am I totally off?
100%. Yeah. And one of the things I did as a leader, so it's funny, I went on a real journey with situational leadership. I remember the conference room I was in HubSpot when we were going through sort of leadership development training, and they introduced this framework to us. I couldn't roll my eyes hard enough. I thought, what? Like, this is just a bunch of Harvard Business School nerds justifying their MBAs and creating stuff that doesn't need to be created. Let's just get back to work and deal with people as people.
Yeah, I'd look at it and I would think, man, this looks like a lot of work. Versus like, the classic phrase that I always got as someone who was being managed was someone would say, you need to manage up, Yeah. So like when I became a manager, all I said was, you guys need to manage up. It was like, whatever, which is like a total cop out, really, I think.
Totally. And I felt the same way. So I didn't buy into it at all. I said, okay, that's nice. What a cool break I had to go through that training. Then I started going through it with Rebecca Guttner. And she was like, great, let's talk about the people on your team. Let's identify the skill sets that they need to develop. Where are they? And all of a sudden, clicks started clicking in my mind. Leadership started to get easier. I started to get better results out of my team. And I really became like an an advocate for this way of working. And in my last roles as VP, I would open up the conversation with the team and I would say, here's one of the ways that I operate. I use situational leadership. I would give them a mini training on it because I wanted to have an open vocabulary. I'm going to treat you as an S1 here. How do you feel? And we could discuss, or I would give them the opportunity to say, Mike, I see that you're treating me as a S4 or you're working on coaching with me. I really need you to move to delegation. So we could have that open communication.
You're dispelling something that I was wondering about. Is this, I was like, is this a concept where I learned it as a manager and then it's like, oh, I keep that close to the chest, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm dealing with an S1 here, and we only talk about it amongst executives. It's our special code words. But no, you're bringing them into the fold, which is probably pretty empowering, I gotta imagine.
It was. I did that for two reasons. One was because it showed a level of trust I had in them to have sort of a mature conversation about their own development and what they needed from me. Two was everyone who reported to me also had direct reports themselves. And I wanted to show them, like, this is how it looks in action. This is how we use this framework so that they had a higher degree of confidence to go use it with their team. Whether or not they were as transparent as I was, they had the chance to see how I was utilizing it and could bring that back to their own practice as a leader.
Amazing. And so that's actually, I think, a wonderful transition point. I would love to hear one example of someone that you worked with on this and, where, as you assess them, where were they? What were the things they needed to work on? And what was sort of like the broad strokes of bringing them to that S4 point? And then I'd love to, you just mentioned it, but you mentioned that some of the people that you were working with also, they had, direct reports and they took this concept to them. I'd love to hear about that as well.
Yeah, I think the first one that comes to mind in terms of like working with someone and having it be successful was, so I talked about the layoffs we had to go through at Toast. When we did, I absorbed the customer education team in addition to the customer success management team there. So this was a discipline, I've always worked around customer education. I had a great degree of respect for them, but I had not been in sort of a customer-facing content creation team before. It's much more in the style of a marketing team, almost. The amount of content you need to produce. It was a brand new discipline, and it was something that I'd never done before. And so I also knew that I had to get out of the way of the team and let them move and not really slow them down while I was learning. So I opened up situational leadership with them. Quickly found out, I sort of bucketed it into two categories because we were moving fast, of who is strong or where are people in their execution abilities and where are people in their strategy development abilities, because we were also having to completely rewrite the operating model for that team. The team had gone from 14 down to 3. So I was like, who are my people who are just going to run and ship stuff? And who are my people who are going to help me design what the future of this program can look like? I was really open with them, but I wanted to be able to do this really quickly and show them that even though I'm an outsider, I'm not going to slow you down. I'm going to help be sort of a tailwind here and help support you in strategy development. So one of the women who became one of my primary lieutenants there, she showed a high aptitude. It was very clear her execution skill set was strong, and her strategy skill set, she had a high desire to do it, a high level of excitement, but she had not had anyone invest with her and show what does it actually mean to develop strategy. I think, you gave the example earlier of sort of giving lazy feedback. One of the most common pieces of lazy feedback I hear from people is, hey, I've been told to be more strategic.
Totally.
What does that mean? What does that look like? How do I do that?
Yeah, I'm furiously nodding my head. You and I have bonded over this. It's one of the, I believe the young kids nowadays, they call this a microaggression. It's like a microaggression. When you tell someone to be more strategic, oh my God, it's like you're just inserting the tiniest little nuclear bomb that is going to go off in their brain later on. They're like, and my manager said to be more strategic. What does that mean?
Yeah. And so exactly. And that was, I saw in her the opportunity to develop strategy, but no one had taken the time to show her what it looks like to be strategic. So
yeah.
Let's break out the templates. Let's work on strategic planning. Let me show you what it looks like when I'm having these conversations at an executive level. And really quick study was able to move her across the phases incredibly quickly. And within a quarter, which was fast for any sort of situational leadership development, I felt like I could delegate strategy development down to her. On the flip side, to sort of show some humility here, Tyler.
Please.
I had another person who I had worked with for a long time and developed a close friendship with as well. Sending birthday gifts, having dinner together. And it's always nice when you have that degree of familiarity and friendship with someone who you're working with, even if they're a direct report.
Sure. Yeah.
The challenge I found is that friendship would blind me to what they needed. And I would
That makes sense.
I allowed them to stay in the directing stage. I allowed them to stay comfortably in a phase where I was providing them with too much guidance and not challenging them or supporting them to move up.
Holding them back.
Exactly. So I was doing a disservice to them, but it didn't feel like it because I was like, oh, this is my friend. I'll just protect them, kind of, to take care of them. I'm a big fan and advocate of personal operating models. And so that means it's sort of like, what are the rituals and moments within a quarter, year, where you are assessing, planning, executing, experimenting? What does that look like for you in your business? And so I had twice a year sort of force myself to map out situational leadership, like skill identification with people on my team. And so, and during one of these times, I realized like, wow, I am treating this person as an S1 and so many skills, and I'm really not challenging them to the degree that I need to challenge them. Fortunately, we had this open conversation and open vocabulary. So I was able to say like, I'm going to change the way that we're working together. Here's why I'm going to change it. Here's how I'm going to adjust the way I'm supporting you. Will that work for you? And it got better, but that was a time when I realized like, the friendship kind of blinded me to that.
I appreciate the humility. And I'm thinking in my mind, different times in my career when I've probably done something similar, just liked a person so much personally that I probably held them back because I just wasn't, it's almost like I kind of had blinders on, like a filter for what they really needed, I guess. I'm curious, you've given many examples of, I think, people that are high on the commitment part of the access, right? What about folks that are low commitment? So, someone who, for whatever reason, they're not really that committed, I guess. Are you trying to bring them to high commitment? Like, yeah, how do you think about that, I guess?
Yeah. So it depends on, are they high commitment with low ability or high commitment with high ability? And I think the more challenging one is they've got the ability to do it. I know they can do it, but their excitement around doing it is really low.
That's what I mean. Yes.
That's a really tough phase. So that's when you want to like really work with them more as like supporting. And so oftentimes it's with moments like that, there can be a disconnect on the impact of their work. It can feel like they're just doing something it's prescribed. I just got to get this done. I got to make this report. I got to send this update, whatever it is, it feels just operational and day to day. And so it's sort of zooming out and saying, let me show you what you're doing and how it's presented in a board meeting, for instance, and how that board is then taking the impact of your work and making further decisions about the way that we should be running the business. I don't know if you realize the impact you're having on the company, or better understanding like, what is not exciting you about this? What would be more exciting? That might open up a career development conversation, frankly. Like maybe they'll never get excited about this because it's reporting as a support lead, but they're really interested in getting into product. Oh, okay. Let me help connect the dots of why this skill development can be really powerful for you if you get over into product management eventually. And if there's no connective tissue there, it's like, great. Is this something you continue on building a skill set on? Like, we need you to operate here, but if you want to add more tools to your tool belt to build your career in a different way, let's talk about that.
Totally. Those crucial conversations. Have you ever read that book before? Crucial Conversations?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that could be a good one to add to your library. I won't go into it right now, but it's so funny as you were saying a lot of that. I know we're both parents, and I was connecting so much of what you just said to my day-to-day parenting. Right? A lot of my 3.5-year-old, a lot of the conversations that we're having, it's about, both of those things, right? It's about finding what are her real desires and kind of helping her understand how we can, get those, achieve those, if possible, right? It's like, hey, you really want to go to the park, right? Well, to go to the park, we have to be wearing clothes. Like we have to put on underwear. We have to put on pants. I'm like, so it's this step, which I know you feel is kind of like unnecessary, but it's actually really necessary. And it'll get you that next step. Or a lot of it is talking to her. And, when they're 3.5, they're just very much like what it's all about. It's all about me. Right. And it's helping them understand actually, when you kicked over all those things on the table, the bowl fell and it hit your sister in the head and she's got a big owie. So like there's a cause and effect here to your actions, So anyway, I just feel like there's so much connection between, obviously parenting is like my main job.
Yeah. No, I know. I'll bring disc profiles into my parenting life. I'll bring situational.
Yeah.
Like I'll bring a lot of these frameworks in to varying degrees of success. I don't know that it always translates perfectly from the world of business to family life.
My wife tells me constantly, she goes, I don't know why you talk so much to our daughter. Like, she's like, you just need to stop. Like, it's like, she's like, say the first 2 sentences of whatever you're saying, and then just stop. Because I'll go into breaking down concepts and I'm like, see, what we're having right now is a crucial conversation with that. My wife's like, stop.
I think that's a dad trait, man. That's my dad. That's me too. I over-explain. I give 16 analogies. Like it's too much.
That's it. I always like, no, you just say, you can't do that. Like that's it. It's the end of the conversation. That's so amazing. And I could absolutely see how this has been super impactful. You now are partnered with somebody who kind of brought this into your life. And tell me a little bit more. I kind of want to bring this full circle. What does this look like now as you experience situational leadership? You learned it initially when you were on the job, and now you're teaching it effectively. How does this come into play with, harmonic leadership, kind of your business? What is it mostly? I know you kind of do both things, right? You're a fractional, call it customer experience, customer success executive. But then also you're a business coach. Is that the preferred kind of title you would take?
I use executive coach.
Executive coach. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Executive coach. Right. And so, what does your business look like today and how do you see it evolving over time?
Yeah, it's interesting. So my portfolio of clients is sort of mixed. I do some fractional work for friends who are leading startups and need sort of a trusted customer success leader, but not able to give them sort of full-time responsibilities as I'm running the business. So that's part of what I do. I'm also, with 15 plus years of customer success executive experience, I participate as an advisor for some other startups building out their customer success team. So that's the chance where I can put my thumb on the scale a little bit more and say, here's the way you need to structure your headcount capacity model. If you haven't done it before, I'll do it alongside of you. And then lastly, as an executive coach, so it's anywhere from first-time founders who feel over their head and just say, I just need someone who's not part of this company and not on the board to be able to share all of my insecurities with, all of my challenges with, and just soundboard out a problem, to people who are like, hey, I've just been getting 5s on my reviews year over year, and I'm stuck in this director level title, and I don't know how to break that VP level, break into that VP level. I just need someone to show it because I'm not getting what I need out of my own boss to build me up into that role. And so the company is sort of a mix of those different types of work that I provide, or services that I provide. And, for a coaching call, typically what it looks like, it's funny. Most people have heard about working with a coach, but they themselves haven't had the opportunity to do it yet. So I'm happy to sort of break down what happens on a coaching call for the people watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
So at least the way that I do it, there are some who really focus on sort of, I consider it the woo-woo, sort of the spiritual element of coaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. There's that if people need it. I like to really focus on actions and like plans and executing and moving forward and measuring our success. So I'll start off every call with checking in red, yellow, green. Like, how are you personally? How are you professionally? And because if they're red on both, it sort of gives me the sense that I need to pull back as a coach and listen a lot more instead of pushing them. If they're green and we have the opportunity to push, I'll push them a little bit more. We'll then recap the previous call. We walked away with some action items. Hey, you said you were going to have this tough conversation with your head of product because they weren't hearing you, and we prepared for it. How did that go? Unpack that. And then from there, say, what's going to be the most important conversation for us to have today? What is the main blocker for you, and how can we get around that?
Yeah.
A lot of the coaching is being driven by them, as opposed to advising, where I can kind of say, we're not paying enough attention to at-risk mitigation. And I think that's where you need to focus. In coaching, it's up to them to say, like, here's where I'm blocked and here's where I need the support, Mike.
Totally. And I'm smiling because a couple of reasons. One is I'm a part of an entrepreneurship membership group called Hampton. Hampton, I think I told you about, we have these things called core groups, which is myself, and I think my group has, there's another 6 or so, or 7. I feel terrible. I don't know the number, but I know all their names. I have fellow entrepreneurs that are in our group, and then our group has a facilitator, someone like yourself who is an executive coach. So one funny thing is, now that I'm on the other side and I'm a business owner, I will say this, I think most employees, I'll speak for myself, my experience, I just don't know if most employees realize how much business owners, one, think that they suck all the time. We think that we suck. So it's like you're sitting here and you're like, man, they just don't get it. You know, they're very painfully aware of all of our shortcomings. I got news for you. We too are very aware of our shortcomings, and we're actually talking to people about it. If you're, I'm not saying every business owner does this, but we're in these meetings. So as you just broke that down, that is essentially the exact structure of our meeting. So we're doing the same thing. You might be, meeting with directors and VPs. Well, somewhere out there, there's, the owner of the business is basically doing the same thing. So we're all just trying to get better. I was going to ask you to do this, if you humor me. This is something I ask every sort of what work guest to do. I'm giving you a chance here because we'll clip this. But I would love if you were to shoot an infomercial for your business. And maybe if you want to just focus on the coaching side, which, by the way, the way you just broke down to me, that's the most compelling part. But if you want to kind of give a, hey, really point out someone out there, the challenge that you mentioned, a great example. You said someone who might be stuck in a director role and they can't get beyond it. Maybe this is your opportunity to kind of give a quick infomercial for you, your business. You can start whenever you want.
All right. Do I have to do, was it Billy Mays? Was that the infomercial guy?
You can do the Billy Mays voice or not. I do Billy Mays here.
Yeah. All right. I'll do a little bit of a hybrid. I'll give it a little bit of camp, but not full camp.
Do whatever is most comfortable. Exactly.
Do you feel over your head? Do you feel that you're not sure who you can honestly share your work challenges with? Do you have a sense of imposter syndrome? Are you someone who's getting great reviews without a clear path for growth? Are you getting feedback like it's time to be more strategic, or we need to see more from you as a leader? Well, then have I got the product for you? Work with Harmonic Leadership. And if you've never heard of an executive coach before, here's what it looks like. First, step 1, we meet and decide, do we jive? Do we click? Does this work for us, or do we not connect at all? Part 2 is we set our goals. What does it mean to be successful in your career? What does growth look like? Most importantly, how are we going to measure it? How do we know if we're making progress or not? Step 3, we meet twice a month for an hour and we work towards achieving those goals. So if you're interested in that, head on down to harmonicleadership.com to learn more today. How's that?
And that was incredible. And I was about to go, blah, 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 blah. This is a special one-time offer. Blah, 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 blah. Harmonic Leadership is not responsible for the well-being of your dog. That
Results may vary.
Yeah. So good. Results may vary. I was grinning ear to ear. So you just nailed that. I put you on the spot. You crushed it. Anybody who is listening to this, I'll just add my 2 cents is that I was definitely that person that was, before I became a business owner, I actually was stuck. I was at a company and I was consistently getting I got the 5s, but I also got we did these core value, winners of the year awards, and I would win those. But every time an executive role came up, it was actually quite frustrating. A lot of the other people at the company that knew me really well, my colleagues, would come up and they'd be like, why don't they consider you for these roles? Like, they never talk to you about it. And I'm like, no, they don't. And so I would have been the perfect client for you. And I would definitely say there's a lot of people I think very similar to myself that are out there that would benefit. So advocate to, your company. I tell you what, if anybody came to me at Higher Frame and really said, I need a coach and here's why, I would absolutely hear them out because I do see a ton of value in it. So Mike, this has been such a pleasure. I greatly appreciate it. And I feel like you gave all the What Work listeners really some incredible free consulting today, talking about situational leadership. I will ask you as our last and final question is, where can people find you? Like, where do you prefer to be contacted? And I think you kind of broke it down, but what do you want to be contacted about?
Yeah. So you can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm Mike Lemire on LinkedIn. You can find me there, or you can go right to harmonicleadership.com, find me there, or just email me. I'm mike@harmonicleadership.com. Happy to do that. Reach out to me. We could, Harmonic, the name is Harmonic. I truly am a musician. All this other stuff is just what I do professionally.
Okay. What do you play?
I'm a singer.
And what?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I'm a classical choral singer.
No, you are not. What's a tenor? T2? Tenor? What are you?
Ooh, I'm a tenor. I'm a T2, in fact. Yeah,
you're a T2. Rock and roll. Okay, cool. That's amazing. And then the first thing popped up, my daughter's really into, my 3.5-year-old is really into Sabrina Carpenter, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but she constantly goes around the house saying, I'm working late because I'm a singer. Anyway, so you're working late because you have several roles that you did.
Yeah.
Business owner, dad, singer. Do you sing in a chorus right now or some type of,
So the painting behind me here is,
which I was going to ask about.
Yeah, it's of a outdoor music venue in the Berkshires called Tanglewood. So for about 10 years, I sang with the Tanglewood Festival Chorus, and they're the chorus in residence for the Boston Symphony Orchestra and the Boston Pops. So I sang out there. I had the chance to sing with them in Carnegie Hall and Boston Symphony Hall, and it was a true pleasure. It's a high commitment, and as a dad of 3 kids and a business owner, I've since pulled back. There are a couple choruses in town, the New World Chorale here in Boston that I sing with today. Sort of the retirement center for
I get it. You're on the senior PGA, senior golfers tour. You're like,
yeah, but it's
you're still out there playing, but it's not as intense. Yeah.
So it's really fun. We sort of like get a piece of music, we know it, we learn it, we show up and do like one rehearsal, and then we're able to perform it. So it's a lot of fun.
That's so cool. I will say that so in high school, my high school was super into a cappella, and we'd have these a cappella groups come from different colleges and all that sort of stuff. And so I got super into it. Funny enough, I got into a cappella for the dumbest reason. I saw whoever it was in every song that was doing the percussion. I was like, I wanted to learn how to
beatboxing.
I want to learn how to beatbox. So I went to the auditions for our high school a cappella group, and I literally said, they were like, what are you here to audition for? And I was like, here to audition for like the beatboxer. And they were like, that is not a singular person. Like, you have to sing, and then we kind of, we'll share those duties. Whatever it was. So long story short is I ended up getting into it. I never learned, I was late to the game on music. What I will say is this is something that I just think the average person who doesn't sing or hasn't sang in that capacity, something that is just an incredible experience that is like a wonder of the world, is to sit inside of call it like a circle or whatever it might be. When you're in there, when you feel people singing and making harmony, it's like godly, in my opinion. It's like the closest thing you can get to being in like the heavens. It's just a crazy, unbelievable feeling and sound. And people that haven't experienced that, I'm like, I wish you could, or you should just go sit inside of a circle. It's amazing.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's honestly why I named the company Harmonic Leadership. Like, as a soloist, you can't experience that sense of harmony. You can't make harmony by yourself. You can only make harmony with other voices. And the way that you blend as a singer and creating that sense of harmony matters a ton. You have to change your own voice to create that harmony and that resonance with the other group. You can't just come out there like super loud and doing your own thing. So much of working with inside of a company and growing a company and being a good leader is listening to those around you and adjusting the way that you speak. So that's where I landed on the name.
That's so cool. The first song we did in the a cappella group was the jazz song Satin Doll, if you know that song.
Do tell.
And I'm trying to remember, it's like da, 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 the exact thing, the moment in time, it's burned in my brain. It's like that satin doll. It's like this really like jazzy chord. And we're sitting there, and it was like it was simultaneously one of the worst experiences I had in music and one of the best, because I was sitting there and I got singled out. And you know this, when you're singled out in chorus or whatever in a group, it just feels, it's like you're sweating, and they make you sing in front of everybody. And it was like he was just the
Conductor.
Conductor. Thank you. I kept on wanting to say composer. The conductor, shout out Mr. Pandolfi, was just singling me out. And he was like, no. And he was like, do it again, do it again, do it again. And I was like, I hate you right now. And then at some point I hit it, and then I felt that chord, and it was like, what is this? This is like so cool. So
Yeah.
it was like, oh yeah, I was like you said, I needed to fit in. I was kind of fitting out, and I needed to fit into the chord, and it was so, so cool. I can't think of a better way to end this. So I feel like we have to do it on that note. Pun intended. But Mike, this has been so great. Anyone out there who is looking for Mike's help, there's several different things he can help you with, but I encourage you to reach out to him. He's as nice as he's coming across in this wonderful episode. He's not a totally different person off camera. Reach out to Mike and see if you can work with him on something. I guarantee you'll be better for it. Thanks everybody for listening to What Worked. I'm Tyler. We got Mike, and we'll see you on the next one.